Hello, my name is Dr. Barbara Lee Golden. I use the pronoun she, her. I am a full-time professor at Algonquin College in the School of Wellness, Public Safety, and Community Studies. I primarily teach in the Bachelor of Early Learning and Community Development. I am married. My spouse's name is Chris. Chris identifies as non-binary and uses the pronouns they, them. We have one daughter, Marlo. She's Indigenous, and we adopted her the day she was born. I'd like to share a little bit about why gender-inclusive early learning is so important to me as a parent, an educator, and a member of the queer community. I'm sharing these stories to contextualize the importance of diverse and inclusive early learning environments, and to share my lived experience and the experience of my family. These stories are not intended to judge or shame educators, but rather illustrate the importance of belonging, well-being, engagement, and expression in early learning environments. This one time, I remember Marlo being so frustrated at pickup at the end of the day. I asked her, "What's wrong?" And she explained to me that whenever we arrive to pick her up, her teachers call out, "Marlo, your mom is here." And each day Marlo says, "Oh, yay, is it mommy or mama?" And the educators would often say things like, "Oh, I don't know, it's just your mom." Or, "Come and see, why don't you tell me?" Or, "Oh my, it's hard to tell them apart from here." And sometimes they would just guess, which was almost worse because Marlo would have to correct them again. Marlo asked me, "Mummy, how come my teachers can remember everyone else's parents' names but mine?" She told me, "Mummy, they know Tyler calls his dad Pa, and Jeeben calls his dad Bap, and Juki calls her mom Nene. Why can't they remember what my moms are called?" At a young age, Marlo felt excluded. She felt devalued. Her educators were able to recall how to say mother and father in several other languages. They could remember these personal connections that other children had. But somehow, for some reason, they couldn't manage who Mummy and Mama were in one family. They couldn't value or remember Marlo's story. Mother's Day and Father's Day were always tricky to navigate as well. The educators wanted to plan an event or a craft to celebrate the adults in the children's lives. However, I don't think they necessarily understood how exclusionary Mother's Day or Father's Day could be. Not everybody had a traditional family. Not everybody had a mother and a father. That families came in different shapes and sizes, and that although an event or an activity was planned to show love, it often seemed very exclusionary. And when you have a family with two moms, or you have a family where one person identifies as the mom and the other identifies as a parent or the other parent, no one really fits into the traditional Father's Day. And we would often be asked, "But who do we celebrate?" And by default, we would often say Chris. Chris can do Father's Day because Chris is non-binary. But that didn't truly honor who Chris was or their role in our family structure. It gave Marlo someone to do a craft for, but it didn't necessarily seem inclusive. We didn't want Marlo to be excluded from the activity or the event, but it often seemed like a compromise or forced. I remember visiting a early learning center a while ago and overhearing an educator say, "Boys and girls, please don't drag your backpacks through the mud. Your moms don't want more laundry to do. Backpacks up, please." And although that seemed like an innocent comment, it immediately struck a nerve. Why were we using binary labels like boys and girls? And why were we assuming that there was a mom at home doing laundry? The reality is, exclusionary practices happen. Unfortunately, they happen a lot more than we would like for them to happen. It's happened to me, my family, and many other families. The stories I've shared and ones like them do not make early childhood educators bad people. We're all trying to do our best each and every day. Not everyone knows what's appropriate, what's expected, what labels or terms to use, or what even is a best practice. Early learning centers and educators are not trying to be exclusionary. They may not know where to start or how to start to make things more inclusive. And that's where I think we could help. That's why I wanted to share my story, my family's story, and that's what led me and our team to this research project.
For the purpose of our project, a literature review was conducted to provide context as to why an accessible self-assessment tool benefits the early learning sector in supporting gender and intersectionality. The main themes that arose during this review included gender and inclusivity within early learning, the impact of policies and frameworks on inclusivity, intersectional approaches to gender and inclusivity in early learning, and finally, the use of bibliotherapy to support gender inclusivity.
The literature highlights that gender plays a crucial role in early identity formation, shaping how children not only perceive themselves but interact with the world around them. The College of Early Childhood Educators supports this and feels gender may differ from the sex assigned at birth, understanding that gender is an expansive concept that extends beyond the traditional female and male binaries. The Belgian gender-responsive pedagogy for early childhood education states that gender identity begins forming as early as the age of 2, influencing self-concept and interaction. Enforcing these gender binaries can restrict identity exploration and contribute to more poor mental health, self-esteem, and body image issues. Gendered expectations reinforce stereotypes and are often unintentionally perpetuated through book, color coding, toys, and classroom environments. For example, referring to firemen and restricting fire play to boys may discourage girls from considering such careers. When educators are unaware of their biases, they may unintentionally reinforce gender norms by selecting materials for their gender. A key theme in the literature is the need for educators to recognize and challenge their biases. Self-reflection through journaling and other methods may help identify ways they may reinforce stereotypes unintentionally in the classroom. Beyond awareness, educators should actively implement inclusive practices and embrace lifelong learning and growth. The literature also explores bibliotherapy, which means to treat through books. The Supporting Gender and Diversity in the Classroom book by Pastel et al. Highlights how children's literature can help create a gender-responsive classroom by challenging stereotypes and promoting inclusivity and identity development. Selecting high-quality books rich in language not only supports a child's literacy development, but also fosters a deeper understanding of diverse identities. Bibliotherapy provides children with relatable characters, helping them develop critical thinking skills and offering insights into how others navigate identity-related challenges. Reflecting on these stories through discussion, written, or creative expression such as art allows children to process and internalize these lessons. This also aligns with the Ontario's pedagogy, How Does Learning Happen?, which recognizes creative expression as a valuable form of communication and self-exploration. Educators play a crucial role in creating inclusive environments where children feel free to explore their identities. By challenging their biases, selecting diverse materials, and utilizing bibliotherapy, educators can foster a safe, empowering space that supports healthy identity formation.
The Ontario College of ECEs is committed to making early learning more inclusive. In 2020, they released practical guidelines for diversity and culture. Gender is mentioned in the document 15 times. However, there are no specific directives pertaining to gender. Something practical was needed. When I worked for a government-funded international organization, we used a framework called Gender-Based Analysis Plus, commonly referred to as GBA+. It involves taking a gender and diversity-sensitive approach to service delivery and is designed to help organizations and individuals move along a continuum from being gender unresponsive to being gender aware, gender informed, and ultimately gender transformative.
The Gender-Based Analysis Plus course is a common tool used to help develop responsive and inclusive policies, programs, and initiatives within our communities. The process of GBA Plus includes learning about who specifically is impacted by challenges and initiatives in our communities, how we can adapt and create policies that are responsive to the needs of those who are impacted, and how we can reduce barriers to accessing supports within our communities. The course provides and defines key concepts of sex and gender, such as gender expression, gender identity, and sexual orientation. It also explains the impacts of intersectionality on an individual's identity formation and lived experiences. The GBA Plus course focuses on the different aspects of an individual's life that intersect to form their identity and how the needs and experiences of different communities can be impacted by their lived experiences.
Within our project, we designed a self-assessment tool using the GBA Plus framework for early learning centers to assess their inclusivity. We piloted this tool with 3 local early learning centers: the Canada Research Park and Family Centre, Andrew Fleck Children's Services George Street location, and the Algonquin College Early Learning Centre.
The Gender Inclusive Early Learning Self-Assessment Tool was created using a GBA Plus lens and was based off the gender integration continuum found within Stinson, Wolfson, and Poole's adaptation. The tool itself came to light based on the modified continuum from Stinson, Wolfson, and Poole's article to create something that was relevant and current and which aligns with best practices in early learning, community development, and mental health work. From this adaptation, we created 10 different sections that are relevant to early learning so that the GBA Plus would be more applicable to the everyday realities and aspects of the sector, and to support fellow educators in creating gender transformative and inclusive centers.
Following the self-assessment, we provided resources to build our 3 early learning centers' capacities to support children and families. This was mostly done through pediatric bibliotherapy and this training video. Additionally, we evaluated the self-assessment tool we designed and incorporated the Early Learning Center's feedback to ensure our tool was effective before sharing it broadly. We wanted a self-assessment tool that was easy to use and would help make early learning more gender inclusive so all children and families and members of the early learning community would feel welcome and a sense of well-being and belonging. They would have a place where everyone could express who they were and be engaged in each other's lives and learning.
Gender transformative practice involves addressing the causes of gender inequities and includes ways to transform harmful norms and relations. Being gender transformative in practice goes beyond acknowledgement and acceptance of gender diversity, but involves active advocacy for gender equality. It involves educating others, creating opportunity for open discussion, and implementing policies and practices that challenge gender inequities in the community. By engaging in these practices, we not only ensure we are being gender inclusive, but we are also supporting the 4 foundations of How Does Learning Happen to ensure that all children and their families are best supported throughout their early years. To be gender transformative with our language, staff within the Early Learning Center consistently use and reinforce gender-neutral language in all types of communications. Being transformative in practice also involves encouraging and educating students, families, and staff to do the same. Gender transformative language practices in early learning environments involve creating and maintaining a safe space where children, educators, and families feel comfortable expressing themselves, starting conversations, and asking questions. Transformative centers will also address and redirect non-inclusive and oppressive language and create opportunities to learn about inclusive language, which not only fosters respect, appreciation, and inclusivity, but the guiding foundations of How Does Learning Happen. Being gender transformative with our literature involves having books and stories that are available and are read to children, which foster belonging, engagement, and expression by using gender-neutral language, including gender-diverse individuals and diverse family structures, and discussing these differences. Educators may also highlight character behaviors that are potentially oppressive, creating opportunities to educate children and families on the issues presented within the story. Books and stories that are available in the Early Learning Center foster a sense of belonging, well-being, and expression through representation and education, and challenge traditional gender norms. For example, stories may include a child who identifies as non-binary, a parent who is transgender, or characters who are gender non-conforming. Additionally, there is a wide variety of diverse books in all classrooms, and they are naturally incorporated into the book collection. To be gender transformative, the learning environment provides educators and children with space and opportunities to display their preferred name and pronouns, if they desire. And the visual space associated with the early learning environment features imagery of families with diverse backgrounds and different types of structures. All washrooms within the Early Learning Center are private and have signage that display it is a fully inclusive and welcomes all genders. All program rooms, as well as the center, hang visible pride flags and safe space stickers welcoming all identities. Gender transformative play activities are never separated by gender, and children of all identities are encouraged to play alongside one another. Educators encourage the sharing of all play equipment, addressing and educating children, families, and staff when gendered norms are used. Children are encouraged to explore whatever interests them during play, regardless of stereotypical gender norms, and educators teach staff, children, and families about gender equity and diversity during play. Stories, songs, and poems include gender-diverse individuals and include themes that teach about gender equity, diversity, and respect within the community. Gender transformative policy involves the center implementing a no-hate policy, which holds staff, children, and families accountable to anti-bullying and equity, diversity, inclusion, and indigenization practices, and developing a concrete commitment to upholding these standards. A GBA Plus lens is used when designing and implementing policies, as diverse needs, backgrounds, and abilities of children and families are considered and addressed. Policies are created collaboratively with community members, incorporate diverse perspectives from different genders, ethnicities, cultures, abilities, and socioeconomic backgrounds, and are developed with diverse family structures and individuals in mind. Implemented policies support the advocacy and research advancements needed for continuous change and improvement that fits both the community and the center's needs. Finally, Policies and their impacts are reviewed on a consistent basis with multiple mechanisms in place to ensure accountability for consistent implementation and continuous program improvements. To be gender transformative, teaching practices and topics that are used within the Early Learning Center include equity, diversity, inclusion, and indigenization to educate children and their families. Additionally, the center requires all staff to take the GBA Plus course training and other continuous learning related to equity, diversity, inclusion, and indigenization, and shares these resources with the larger community. Gender transformative family and community engagement entails using gender-neutral language and asking the appropriate pronouns to use when speaking to any individual within the community. Staff also create time and opportunity to have meaningful discussions, answer questions, and share information regarding equity, diversity, inclusion, and indigenization, and GBA Plus approaches with parents, caregivers, and families. The Early Learning Center's events are never focused on binary gender roles. They celebrate equity, diversity, inclusion, and indigenization, and holidays from diverse cultures. The Early Learning Center also supports, promotes, participates in, and creates diverse community events such as activities for Pride Month, the Pride Parade, and anti-bullying events, engaging in educating children, families, and the community. A gender transformative early learning center will require all educators to take the GBA Plus course training, related equity, diversity, inclusion, and indigenization training, and continuous education surrounding EDII. To support staff, the Early Learning Center develops and provides GBA Plus training, resources, and support for educators, family, and the community. Consistent opportunity and space is also intentionally created for reflection and dialogue between children, staff, and families regarding gender inequities. Gender transformative centers also invest significant time into research regarding the intersectionality of factors impacting inclusion and diversity within their early learning environments, and the findings from said research are shared and used to inform best practices and policy. Finally, for advocacy and social change, a gender transformative early learning center pushes to engage in frequent discussion and collaborates with stakeholders and the community to create positive change, address barriers to inclusion, and foster the 4 foundations of how does learning happen within the early learning center and the larger community.
For years, I've used children's literature to help teach children and adults alike about big feelings, diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice. I've incorporated bibliotherapy into my classroom teaching, my parenting, my community work, and now my research. It has only been recently that I've become officially trained and certified in bibliotherapy, specifically in developmental bibliotherapy. But it's an absolute passion of mine. The benefits are far-reaching. In bibliotherapy, we use books to foster emotional and social understanding, to create inclusive learning environments by helping children, educators, and families develop empathy, self-awareness, and a sense of belonging, ultimately leading to more positive and accepting learning environments.
The purpose of bibliotherapy is to use books to support mental health and emotional well-being. It helps with processing emotions, personal growth, and developing coping strategies. There are 2 types of bibliotherapy, but in the educational sector, developmental bibliotherapy is most prevalent. Bibliotherapy has just as many benefits for the child as it does for educators. The books provided through bibliotherapy often present diverse perspectives and challenges. Bibliotherapy benefits the child because they learn how to identify and understand and articulate feelings, ways to manage their own feelings, to develop empathy and understand others' experiences, develop language and new vocabulary, to develop problem-solving skills, develop their resilience, how to engage in the process of self-reflection about themselves, leading to identity formation through discussion and collaboration, and to develop a sense of belonging. Bibliotherapy benefits the educator because it helps to reduce burnout, find motivation, process emotions, develop a deeper understanding of children's experiences and struggles, equip them with the tools to support children, provide professional development, inform of best practices and innovative approaches, model a love for reading, and recommend additional books or other resources to families. There is a total of 64 books provided in the compendium document. These 64 books discuss topics such as gender identity, persistence, overcoming challenges, barriers to access, and family structures. There is a combination of board books, hardcover, and softcover books. The appendix document containing all 64 books is a guide on the potential uses of each book. It provides the approximate age range, some activities, and potential talking points, as well as a description of each book. The description includes a short synopsis, as well as a short description of emergent themes. The age ranges of each book are identified by groups such as infant, toddler, preschooler, kindergarten, and school age. Each book can fit multiple age groups, in which the activities and talking points may vary slightly. For example, Neither by Arlie Anderson promotes diversity and lets readers know that our differences unites us. This book introduces the reader to a land where, for centuries, only yellow birds and blue bunnies existed. That is, until a green egg appears. Neither. The age range identified is toddlers and preschoolers. Some examples of talking points include the following: reinforce that it is our differences that unite us, challenge exclusionary practices and promotes acceptance, and ask children what makes them feel included in their environments. This book is categorized in the gender identity section. There were 5 identified categories as listed: gender identity, intersectionality, big feelings, creative expression and persistence, and self-love and identity. Gender identity refers to the sense one has of their own gender. This could involve a person's preferred pronouns, their gender expression, and the way individuals perceive themselves. A person's gender identity may or may not align with the sex assigned at birth. Intersectionality refers to the aspects of a person's identity, such as gender, race, sexuality, etc., that interact to shape one's experiences. It helps us to understand the complexities of systematic issues. Big feelings refer to the range of emotions children may feel. The books in this section help children to learn how to navigate these feelings. Children benefit from having support systems that help them navigate big feelings. Creative expression and persistence refer to the ability to showcase oneself and continue to do so in spite of the barriers. Self-love and identity refers to the ability of individuals to be proud of themselves and know what makes them unique. The formation of identity and gaining self-love is a journey. And Tango Makes Three, written by Justin Richardson and Peter Parnell and illustrated by Henry Cole, is a story about diverse families, same-sex parents, and adoption. Some potential talking points related to this book include asking children what family means to them and asking who is a part of their family. Another similar book listed in the compendium is The Family Book by Todd Parr. This book discusses different types of family, who makes a family, and where families live. It provides opportunities to ask children about their own families. Educators may also summarize the types of families explored in this book. All Are Welcome by Alexandra Penfold and illustrated by Suzanne Kaufman emphasizes a space in which all children are loved and accepted. Some potential talking points relating to this book include asking children about the ways in which they feel welcome in the early learning program, asking children about how they can celebrate others, and discussing the importance of listening to diverse voices. In the compendium, All Are Welcome was categorized in the intersectionality section. Some thought-provoking questions associated with the category include: how can we support others and their differences? When do you feel most connected, loved, and safe?
At the time of video creation and publication, the following resources pertaining to bibliotherapy and inclusivity training are available to you. The resources shown are all free to access, but there are additional resources available at varying costs. Links to each resource will be available in the video description, but please scan each QR code to access the resources directly.
There are currently no specific directives pertaining to gender in the College of ECE's Practice Guidelines for Diversity and Culture. Gender is mentioned 15 times, but there are no clear examples, tips, or strategies. Our self-assessment tool can help early learning centers assess where they are and provide resources to becoming more gender inclusive and ideally gender transformative. The GBA Plus framework has already been used across public and private sectors, but to the best of our knowledge, this was the first time it was used in early childhood education. We will share our self-assessment tool and our bibliotherapy compendium with the College of ECEs as an example to support their practice guidelines for diversity and culture. Who knows, the self-assessment tool may eventually be applied to home-based childcare or elementary school learning environments. Now that our self-assessment tool, our bibliotherapy compendium, and this little video are complete, we plan to share it all for free. We will share it with anyone and everyone who would like a copy and would like to help make early learning more gender inclusive. Early learning centers and educators are not intending to be exclusionary. They just don't know where or how to start to make things more inclusive. So let's start here and now, together. Let's make early learning more gender inclusive so all children and families and members of the early learning community feel welcome and a sense of well-being and belonging. So early learning centers are a place where everyone can openly express who they are and be engaged in each other's lives and learning. It's time to make early learning gender inclusive. It's time to make early learning gender transformative.